All right, everybody, what is going on? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk Show. We cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells, coming at you. And man, we're gonna recap week 3 action. All what a week, man. You know, hey, this was one of them weeks where there's some good games, there's some bad games, man. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm gonna run through all the games that took place yesterday and kind of talk a little bit about them. Our week 4 pick'em is up now on all my socials, which are Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. Right now, after 4 weeks of action, that's week 0, week 1, week 2, week 3. Carlos Johnson, Los J, is in the lead with 30 points right now. So a lot of time for everybody to get going, but right now, my man Los J is in the lead with 30 points. And we'll continue to keep a running tab. I'll post a kind of a top 5 or whatever later in the week, and keep you guys updated to that. Don't forget, after the Celebration Bowl, the winner will be crowned. Winner will get a championship belt with their name on it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment and share. And let's go ahead and jump into this, man, because it's been a rough Saturday for some of us. So we're gonna go ahead and knock this out. First game that we have is Alabama A&M taking on Georgetown, Kentucky. What a game for the Bulldogs, man. This was a game that was a lot tighter than anybody, well, most of us expected. That might have been some slight to Georgetown, but most of us thought A&M would take care of business easily. This was a tight game for a long time. Actually, A&M led this game 10-7 at the half. They didn't get their first touchdown until the early portions of the second quarter, when Donovan Eaglin was scoring an 11-yard touchdown run. And then, like I said, 10-7 was the halftime score. Georgetown would actually tie the game up at 10 on a 39-yard field goal with 8 minutes left in the game before A&M would get a 31-yard run from Avion Smith with 3:26 left in the third. Put the Bulldogs up 17-10. With 8 seconds left in the third, the Tigers would get a 33-yard field goal, made the score 17-13. Then the Bulldogs would get a DeQuadrion Welch 19-yard reception from Smith with 12:48 to go in the game to make the score 24-13. And with 25 seconds left on the clock, Georgetown would kick a 36-yard field goal to make the final margin 24-16. So rough game for A&M. Just didn't really seem like they could put the ball in the end zone. They had a really solid offensive game though. 25 first downs, 18 for the Tigers. Bulldogs ran for 252 yards. They gave up 46 yards rushing. They averaged 7.2 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns. Tigers 1.7 yards per carry, no touchdowns. Tigers 276 yards through the air, 19-35, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. A&M 263 yards through the air, 19-34, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. 515 yards for the Bulldogs, 69 plays, 7.5 yards per play. They did fumble once and lost it, so they had 2 turnovers. Those are obviously drive killers. 322 for the Tigers, 62 plays, 5.2 yards per play, no fumbles. 7 penalties for 48 yards for the Bulldogs, 1 for 5 for the Tigers. A&M 46 yards per punt. Georgetown 45.6. Georgetown went 6 of 16 on third down. They didn't attempt a fourth down. Alabama A&M went 3 of 10 on third down and 1 or 2 on fourth down. Bulldogs had 3 sacks. Tigers had 1. When you look at the individual players, Garrett Slunaker was 19-34 for 276 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for the Tigers. 1 touchdown, no interception for the Tigers, 3 sacks. Cornelius Brown was 8 of 18 for the Bulldogs, 119 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Avion Smith 10 of 15 for 110 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And Xavier Langford was 1 for 1 for 34 yards, no touchdown, no interceptions. Darius Neal had 22 carries for 70 yards for the Tigers. Donovan Eaglin, 14 carries, 81 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Morrow, 7 for 73 for the Bulldogs. Jamarcus Robinson led the Tigers with 5 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. Clayton Davis, 2 for 79. Duke Miller, 2 for 42 for A&M. Also Keenan Hamburg, 2 for 42. Donovan Eaglin, 4 for 42. And Miles Parker, 3 for 40. Jason Hayes led the Tigers with 11 tackles. Ramarion Warner had 1 tackle for loss. And Warner and Guylar had a half a sack apiece. Alabama A&M was led by Cortez Andrews with 12 tackles. He also had 3 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks. That would, that's a very, very solid effort. Right? Could be in the running for Defensive Player of the Week with those numbers. Like I said, this was a kind of a tougher game than A&M and most of us expected. But they did find a way to close out this game. This is one of those games where you look at the numbers and it shows a game that should probably be worse than what it was, because A&M was able to do almost whatever they wanted. They just couldn't really put points on the board. 2 turnovers obviously hurt you in that aspect, and just couldn't really put points on the board. 3 of 10 on third down as well. Those are things that can kind of hurt you. But they get the win. They move to 2-1, and they head to Clarksville, Tennessee, to take on Austin Peay on Saturday night. On Saturday, September 21st. So they will wrap up their non-conference slate next week with a road game at Austin Peay. And that takes us to our next game on the schedule, which is Alcorn taking on Edward Waters. Again, this was a game that was really tight in the first half. Alcorn led this game 10-0 at the half. I don't have a box score, so I'm kind of working off the recap. It took Alcorn a while to get going. They went into the half up 10-0. They will score 4 touchdowns in the second half, 2 in each quarter to win 38-7. Excuse me. As Edward Waters did squeeze out a late touchdown. Xavier Vaughn had 228 total yards of offense, 184 passing, 48 yards rushing. He ran for a touchdown. That came late in the second quarter to put the Braves up 10-0. He will score 2 more rushing touchdowns, including a 24-yarder in the fourth quarter. He spread the ball around to multiple receivers. Tyran Warren caught 2 catches for 52 yards. T. Adams caught 3 catches as well for 62 yards. His longest pass went to Warren in the third quarter, which was a 46-yarder, which led to a 1-yard touchdown run. Tyler Macon ran the ball for 27 yards and a touchdown. Kevin May had 34 yards on 4 carries. Alcorn ran for 201 yards on the day. Defensively, Alcorn held Edward Waters to 53 yards rushing and 101 total yards of offense. Stamarion Edwards had 5 tackles, including 1.5 tackles for loss. Bakari McCall had an interception, which was 1 of 2 turnovers forced by Alcorn in the game. Like I said, the defense was really solid. Only allowed Edward Waters to be 1 of 4 on third downs in the second half. Noah Kiani was perfect on the day, converting all 5 extra points and making a 30-yard field goal in the first quarter to put the Braves up 3-0. So this was a game. It was kind of bumpy. Edward Waters was, they were a little froggy, but they really couldn't do a lot offensively against Alcorn. Once Alcorn started to kind of get the ground game going, that changed the perception of the game and gave the Braves a win, which they pick up their first win, and they moved to 1-2 on the season. They head to Lake Charles on Saturday to take on McNeese. That's a ESPN Plus game, 7 p.m. kick. So definitely keep an eye out on that one. And that takes us to our third game of the day, which is Bethune-Cookman taking on Western Michigan. Wildcats put up some points in this game, primarily on the legs of Darnell Dees, who should easily be the specialist of the week, or a special team player of the week, whatever they call it. He had a huge game in this game for Bethune-Cookman. scoring 2 touchdowns on kick returns. He had a 95-yard return at the end of the first half, and then he had a 98-yard return at the beginning of the second half. So he had 2 kick returns. He accounted for 2 of Bethune-Cookman's touchdowns in this game. And ultimately, it was a game that looks a lot closer than what it was. Western Michigan went up 28-0 by the midpoint of the first half before Cam Ransom got Bethune-Cookman on the board with a 3-yard touchdown run to make the score 28-7. Western Michigan will get a touchdown late in the first half to go up 35-7 before Darnell Dees would get his first kick return, which made the halftime score 35-14. Coming out of half, like I say, Dees got him another return, which made it score 35-21. Western Michigan will get 2 more touchdowns to go up 49-21. Bethune-Cookman will get a fourth quarter field goal from 41 yards out to make the score 49-24. Then Western Michigan will get a field goal to go up 52-24, and then Bethune-Cookman will get another Cam Ransom touchdown from 2 yards out to make the score 52-31, which would cut into the lead. But then a 48-yard run for Western Michigan with 2:39 left in the game would make the final margin 59-31. So it kind of, it kind of looks a little closer than what it was, but great effort for Darnell Dees in this game to really kind of shift momentum a little bit, but Bethune-Cookman ultimately could not keep pace with the Broncos. 17 first downs for Bethune-Cookman, 30 for Western Michigan, 139 yards rushing for Bethune-Cookman, 372 for Western Michigan, 8.9 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. Bethune-Cookman 3 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. 116 yards passing for Bethune-Cookman, 10 of 15, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Western Michigan 305 yards passing, 15 of 19, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. 255 yards of total offense for the Wildcats, 62 plays, 4.1 yards per play, 1 fumble, and they didn't lose it. They had 6 penalties for 41 yards. Western Michigan, 677 yards of offense, 61 plays, 11.1 yards per play, no fumbles for them, 7 penalties for 63 yards. Bethune-Cookman averaged 44.2 yards per punt. Western Michigan, 46.5. Bethune-Cookman was 3 of 15 on third down, 1 for 1 on fourth down, 2 for 2 in the red zone. They had 1 sack. Western Michigan, 3 of 6 on third down. They didn't attempt a fourth down conversion. They were 4 for 4 in the red zone, and they had 4 sacks on the night. Bethune-Cookman was led by Cam Ransom, 10 of 14 passing, 116 yards. Like I say, was sacked 4 times. Hayden Wolf was 15 of 19 for the Broncos, 305, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 sack. Ransom led the Wildcats with 20 carries for 44 yards and 2 touchdowns. Courtney Reese, 10 carries, 34 yards. Jaden Nixon led Western Michigan with 17 carries for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns. Zahir Abdus-Salam had 18 carries for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Broncos. Lorenzo Jenkins had 1 catch for 44 yards for Bethune-Cookman. Amari Stewart, 2 for 31. Anthony Sambucci had 4 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown for Western Michigan. Shelton Quarles Jr. had 11 tackles for Bethune-Cookman. Jeremy Greaves Jr. had 1 tackle for loss and 1 sack. Andrew Volmar had the interception. Western Michigan was led by Dominic Moon and Rodney McGraw with 7 tackles apiece. Mason Nelson had 2.5 tackles for loss. He also had 1 sack. Tyson Lee had 1 sack. Isaiah Green and Corey Walker each had a sack as well. And like I said, just take a look at what Darnell Dees did all purpose on the night. He had 4 returns for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. So really big game for him in that aspect. I've been waiting for him to have a breakout game, and he had it today. So, he showed why he's one of the top return men in the country. And so that was that's a nice weapon for Bethune-Cookman. Offensively, they still have some stuff to work through. But they had a pretty solid game. Defensively, just could not stop the run. that really did them in a game like this. They take on Clark Atlanta on Saturday at home. That game will be on HBCU Go. So if you want to check out a game, you can check that out. Like I said, it's a 2 p.m. Eastern time kick, 1 p.m. Central, as the Wildcats look to pick up their first win of the season as they drop to 0-3 thus far. Our next game that we have on the schedule is Prairie View taking on Michigan State. Spartans get the win 40-0. This was a game where Michigan State jumped out to a 27-0 first half lead, 27-0 at half. They got a 6-yard Aiden Childs run, a 17-yard Isaiah Johnson pass from Childs. Nate Carter had a 60-yard run, and then they had a 100-yard pick six at the late stages of the second quarter to make the score 27-0. In the third quarter, Michigan State will get a 33-yard field goal and then a 23-yard field goal from Jonathan Kim. And then Tommy Schuster will get a 1-yard run with about 4 minutes left in the game to make the score 40-0. Cameron Peters, 9 of 17 for Prairie View, 123 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 3 sacks. Childs, 12 of 19 for 173 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception, no sacks. Scooter Adams, 55 carries, 24 yards for Prairie View to lead the Panthers. Nate Carter led Michigan State with 8 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. Trajan Spiller, 7 for 91 for the Panthers through the air. Johnson, 2 for 50 and a touchdown for Michigan State. Antonio Gates Jr., that's a name that should be familiar to some of you guys. 3 catches, 42 yards on the night. Terrell Coleman led Prairie View with 6 tackles along with Aiden Jones. Tackle for loss. Sumbo and Turner each had 1 tackle for loss. No sacks, no interceptions. Michigan State was led by Jordan Turner with 7 tackles on the night. He also had 1.5 tackle for loss and 1 sack. Stoney Chaney also had 1.5 tackle for loss. Cal Halliday and Ken Talley had 1 sack apiece for the Spartans. And then Charles Brantley had a pick 6 for the Spartans. As Prairie View drops this game, they jump back into SWAC play on Saturday against Southern. Big game there. You know, that's a game that we're definitely going to spend a lot of time talking about in our week 4 preview. That's a huge game for both teams. I think neither team can afford a loss, especially in conference play. And like I said, we'll spend more time talking about that game as we get to it. This was just one of those, you know, kind of one of those FBS games where you kind of it just not much really goes your way, and you know you kind of have to make your way through it and move on and get ready for your next week. And that's pretty much what that was for Prairie View. Murray State jumped all over Valley. This was a game that a lot of people thought Valley had a solid chance in this game. Murray State hadn't played well. They lost to Missouri and a non-scholarship Butler team coming into this game. Valley looked pretty solid against Lamar last week, but it didn't work out. Valley fell behind 31-8 in the first half and will ultimately lose 59-8. This just was not a game for Valley. As their road woes continue, Murray State will get a early touchdown from Jaden Johansson, 36 yards to Justice Hill. Tyson Miguez will get a 3-yard fumble recovery, scoop and score. That was early in the first quarter, and Valley was already down 14-0. Johansson had a 5-yard run late in the first quarter to go up 21-0. And then Jawan Northington will get a 5-yard run for the Racers to put them up 28-0. James London will get a 54-yard field goal for the Racers to put them up 31-0. Valley will get a Carrick Ross 15-yard touchdown pass from Tajarian Williams to make it score 31-8. Kywan Morgan will get a 45-yard run for Murray State, and Cade Neely will catch a 38-yard pass from Johansson. Both scores came in the third quarter. Murray State led 45-8 at that point. Marcus Floyd Jr. will get a 15-yard pass from Jamison Holcomb, and then Kevin Emanuel will wrap up the scoring with a 5-yard run to give the Racers a 59-8 lead and victory. Valley 16 first downs, Murray State 23. Valley 57 yards on the ground, 219 for Murray State. 45 carries for the Racers, 4.9 yards per carry for a touchdown. Valley 45 carries, 1.3 yards per carry, no touchdowns. 163 yards through the air for Valley, 14 of 32. One touchdown, one interception. 221 yards for Murray State, 12 of 24 passing. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Valley 220 yards of offense, 77 plays. 2.9 yards per play. They fumbled twice and lost both. They had 3 penalties for 29 yards. Murray State 440 yards, 69 plays, 6.4 yards per play, no fumbles. They had 5 penalties for 37 yards. Valley 46.4 yards per punt average. Murray State 46.7 yard per punt average. Valley 7 of 19 on third down, 2 of 5 on fourth down. They had 1 for 2 in the red zone. Murray State 14 of 18 on third downs, no fourth down attempts. They were 4 for 4 in the red zone, and they registered 5 sacks as a defense. Valley was led by Tajarian Williams. He was 11 of 23 passing, 129 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 5 times. Jaden Johansson, 9 of 19 for Murray State, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. Jacoby Thomas, 4 carries, 26 yards for Valley. Kywan Morgan, 8 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown for Murray State. Carrick Ross, 3 for 59 for Valley and 1 touchdown. Nathan Rembert, 7 for 49 for Valley. Justice Hill, 3 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Cade Neely, 2 for 56 and a touchdown. Valley was led by Eric Campbell with 8 tackles on the night. He also had a half a tackle for loss. Emmanuel Arenzi, Brandon Williams, each had 1 tackle for loss apiece. Murray State was led by James Camden with 12 tackles. Deron Goodrum had 1.5 tackle for loss. Josh Williamson also had 1.5 tackle for loss. Kevon Hagler as well, and Justice Cross each had 1.5 tackle for loss. Hagler had 1.5 sacks. He also had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery, and Jordan Sonnebein had the interception for Murray State. As Valley, like I said, they were just never in this game. It was just a rough outing for them. They continue their road trip as they head to Thibodaux to take on the Nickel State Colonels on Saturday. So Valley will wrap up their non-conference slate with another road trip, and they'll jump in the SWAC play on September 28th at home against Alcorn. So Valley, it's been a rough stretch. They always play those tough non-conference games as they kind of make their way through an early non-conference slate before they jump into conference play. And this season was no different. Our next game on the schedule is Alabama State taking on Samford, and this game was a game that really didn't have much going for it offensively. Bama State led this game 7-6 at the half. They got an early touchdown in the first quarter from Marcus Harris from 14 yards out. And then from that point on, the offense really could not do much. If you look at their drive chart, the next drive, they went 3 plays, -5 yards. Second drive, 3 plays, -10 yards. They did have their lone successful drive in the first half came on their 4th drive where they went 4 plays in 61 yards in 4 plays. They scored the touchdown. After that, they went 3 for 7, 6 for 11, 6 for 17, 3 for 4. They did have a 13-play, 60-yard drive that got them down to the Sanford 32 before they punted. Excuse me, got them down to the Sanford 32 before they missed a field goal. Third quarter, much of the same, 3 for 3, 5 for 22, 3 for -6, 6 for 38, and then 3 for -8. So just could not get anything going offensively. Sanford, they scored 2 touchdowns. Didn't get the extra point on either one. They got a 5-yard touchdown pass with 5:46 left in the first half. And then with 7:01 left in the third quarter, they got a 1-yard touchdown run. And that would basically be the game. Alabama State finished with 10 first downs, Sanford 16, 103 yards rushing for the Hornets, 34 carries, 3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 120 on the ground for Sanford, 47 carries, 2.6 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 106 yards passing for Bama State, 9 of 23, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 185 yards passing for Sanford, 19 of 25, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 209 yards of offense for the Hornets, 57 plays, 3.7 yards per play, no fumbles, 6 penalties, 37 yards. Sanford, 305 yards, 72 plays, 4.2 yards per play. They fumbled 4 times, but they didn't lose any. 3 penalties for 26 yards. Bama State, 35.1 yards per punt. They punted 10 times in this game, 37.3 yards per punt average for Sanford. Bama State 5 of 16 on third down, didn't attempt a fourth down. They were 1 for 1 in the red zone. They had 1 sack. Sanford 5 of 17 on third down. They didn't attempt a fourth down. They were 2 for 5 in the red zone, and they had 2 sacks. Bama State was led by Zach Sims. He went the whole way, 9 of 23, 106 yards, no touchdown, no interception, 2 sacks. Quincy Crittenden, 19 of 25, 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked once. Marcus Harris led the Hornets with 11 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. DeMonte Witherspoon, 23 carries, 126 yards, and 1 touchdown for the Bulldogs. Bakari Daly led Bama State with 2 catches for 51 yards. Ian Cousin, 4 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown for the Bulldogs. Brendan Jenkins, 4 for 74. E.J. Mason also had 6 catches for 33 yards. Rico Dozier led the Hornets with 10 tackles. He also had a tackle for loss. Traquan Thomas, 2 tackles for loss and a half a sack. Tyler Swan also had a half a sack. Interception was by Rudy Jean-Louis. Sanford was led by Noah Martin with 11 tackles. Jaden Mosley had 2 tackles for loss. And Makai Gilbert led the team with 1 sack. Just, like I said, this team offensively, Bama State just has not really, they are kind of in a state of flux when you look at, where they are, their quarterback situation. Offense is just not in a good spot right now. Defense is doing everything that they can. Like I said last night on our live post-game show, aka the C. Wells Misery Show. You should not score. You should not give up 12 points and lose. Your defense gives up 12 points. You should win that game 95% of the time. So they're gonna have to find something offensively to kind of get some kind of rhythm because they just don't have it right now. They do have a bye week, so they can kind of figure out some things. These young guys have 2 games of live action under their belts now, so they can maybe they can start to grow a little bit. And they come off of that bye week with a road game at Bethune-Cookman as they open up SWAC play. So been a kind of rough go of it early. They are 1-2 right now, and not really feeling the best about where the Hornets are right now. But there's still a lot of time in the season. If they can kind of figure out some things on the offensive side of the ball, the defense is definitely more than good enough to keep them in games in SWAC play. So we'll continue to monitor the Hornets quarterback situation and see if it gets any better as the season goes on. Next, we have a game that was really entertaining, an overtime game between Gremlin and Texas A&M Commerce. The Tigers beat the Lions 35-28. Big win for Gremlin as they move to 2-1. They pick up a victory over the Southland. You know, like I said, these teams you can say Texas A&M Commerce and Northwestern State aren't good teams, but they're teams on the schedule. They're teams from another conference. They're teams from a non-HBCU conference. You know, we have as a league struggled to win these kind of games. So to win them, I don't care how they win them. If you win them, that's good. And this was a good win for Gremlin as they battled all night in this game and won this game in overtime, 35-28. Gremlin would score first on a 35-yard scoop and score to go up 6-0. Then Texas A&M Commerce will get a 69-yard touchdown run. Luke Jackson, former SWAC guy from Southern and Jackson State, is not a kicker at Texas A&M Commerce. Just thought I'd point that out. Extra point was good, 7-6. Gremlin will get a Jacoby Belazar 10-yard pass from Miles Crawley to take a 14-7 lead after a 2-point conversion. BK Jackson will get another touchdown run, this time for 9 yards to make the score 14-14. Texas A&M Commerce will get a Jashawn McMillan 5-yard run to go up 21-14. And then Trey Bradford will get a 41-yard run for Gremlin to tie the score up at 21 after the extra point. That would be our halftime score, 21-all. Nicholas Howard Braxton Garman would get the Lions back in the lead with a 27-yard pass with a 3-yard touchdown run to make score 28-21. Nicholas Howard would get a 27-yard pass from Miles Crawley to tie the game up at 28 with 1:18 left in the game. And then Trey Bradford would get a victory for Gremlin with a 3-yard run in overtime to give the Tigers a 35-28 lead. Texas A&M Commerce would throw an interception on their first play in overtime, and Gremlin would win the game 35-28. So great defensive stop at the end in overtime for Gremlin, not even giving them a chance to score and to get out of there with a victory. 13 first downs for the Tigers, 19 for the Lions. Gremlin 117 yards rushing, 34 carries, 3.4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. 267 yards on the ground for Texas A&M Commerce, 54 carries, 4.9 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. 130 yards through the air for Gremlin, 15-32, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 152 yards passing for Texas A&M Commerce, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's a huge number. 247 yards of offense for Gremlin, 66 plays, 3.7 yards per play, 2 fumbles. They lost 1. They had 10 penalties for 66 yards. So Gremlin had 3 turnovers in this game. Texas A&M Commerce, 419 yards, 82 plays, 5.1 yards per play. They had 2 fumbles and lost both. This was a sloppy game. 9 total turnovers in this game, man. That's a sloppy game. 6 penalties for 51 yards. Gremlin 39.4 yard per punt average. Texas A&M Commerce 36. Gremlin 4-15 on 3rd down. They did not attempt a 4th down conversion. They were 2 or 3 in the red zone. They had 3 sacks. They had 2 sacks. Texas A&M Commerce 5-17 on 3rd down. 2 or 5 on 4th down. They were 3 or 3 in the red zone, and they had 2 sacks as well. Miles Crawley was 14 of 30 for Gremlin, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 sacks. Ron Peace, 14 of 28, 152 yards, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He was sacked twice. Gremlin, Trey Bradford, 15 carries, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns, average 4.7 yards per carry. BK Jackson led Texas A&M Commerce with 16 carries for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns, average 9.3 yards per carry. Big game for him. Kavitis Knighton had 4 catches for 29 yards for Gremlin. Nick Howard, 1 for 27 and a touchdown. Christian Jordan had 4 catches, 57 yards for the Lions. Andrew Jones led Gremlin with 13 tackles. He also had 2 tackles for loss. Brendan Barley had 2 tackles for loss as well. Patrick Marshall had a sack, a forced fumble, and an interception. So, and a game-winning interception. So, really big effort for him there. Commerce was led by Brandon Tucker Jr. with 10 tackles. He also had 1 tackle for loss, along with Kendall Paul, Lavon Williams, and Anthony Gray. Gray had 1 sack. Interceptions went to Rios and Shaw. As Texas Commerce had 4 interceptions. Let me run through all the guys from Gremlin who had interceptions. Caleb Lee Collins, Patrick Marshall, Brendan Barley, and Markel Linzer all had interceptions for Gremlin. As they, like I said, they forced 6 turnovers in this game. So that definitely was a turning point in this contest. As Gremlin was able to survive Texas Commerce and a pretty sloppy game to get a road victory. So they climbed to 2-1, and they take on Jackson State on Saturday. That's a big game, but it's also a non-conference game, and that'll be Gremlin's last non-conference contest of the season before they get into conference play. With a matchup on September 28th in Dallas against Prairie View. So Gremlin, they're in a better spot. They picked up their first FCS win of the season, coming off of a victory over Tuskegee. And so they are, they're kind of feeling their way around offensively. They haven't looked that sharp, but they're getting it done. And I think this team is going to get better as the season goes on. Like I said, I think the running game is going to improve. Miles Crawley hasn't been as sharp as he was at the start of last season, but, the potential is there. Defensively, gave up some big plays in this game, but were able to get off the field, whether it was by turnover or third down stop. They bent but didn't break a lot in this game. And if they can continue to get better, Gremlin will be a factor in the West Division as the season progresses. Our next game is Tennessee State taking on UAPB. Golden Lions, well, they were game in this battle. I think they are. I don't think they're gonna be a team that's very. I don't think they're gonna be a bad team this year. I don't know how many wins they're gonna pick up, but I think they're definitely gonna be better than they were last season. They dropped this game 41-28, but they led this game 7-0. Giovanni Gibson got a 33-yard pass from Mekhi Higgins to open up the scoring. Tennessee State will get a touchdown and a field goal in the first quarter to take a 10-7 lead. Then Karate Benson will get a 22-yard pass from Draylon Ellis to go up 17-7 before Damon Dawkins will get his first touchdown as a Golden Lion guy. I think he's a senior. Had a lot of playing time, hadn't scored a touchdown at UAPB, got his first one of the season here on a 30-yard pass from Higgins to trail 17-14. Jordan Gant will get a 12-yard pass from Ellis to put the Tigers up 24-14. And then Jalal Dean will get a 4-yard pass from Ellis to wrap up the first half scoring to go in the half at 31-14. CJ Evans will get a 38-yard run for the Tigers to open up the third quarter with a score of 38-14 before Kevin English will catch a 5-yard pass from Mekhi Higgins to trail 38-21. O'Shawn Ross will get a 2-yard touchdown run for Pine Bluff with 49 seconds left in the third quarter to give the Golden Lions a 38-28 deficit. Tennessee State will tack on a field goal midway in the fourth quarter from 40 yards out to take a 41-28 lead, and that will be our final score. Pine Bluff 16 first downs, Tennessee State 24. 53 yards rushing for the Golden Lions on 38 carries, 1.4 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. 196 yards rushing for the Tigers, 37 carries, 5.3 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. 276 yards of passing offense for the Golden Lions, 15-31, 8.9 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Tennessee State 228 yards passing, 20-33, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. 329 yards of offense for the Golden Lions, 69 plays, 4.8 yards per play. They fumbled twice and lost one. They had 15 penalties for 121 yards. That's always going to hurt you in games like this. 424 yards of offense for Tennessee State, 70 plays, 6.1 yards per play. They had 3 fumbles and lost 2. They had 7 penalties for 69 yards, 30.6 yard average per punt for Pine Bluff, 30.5 yard per punt average for Tennessee State. Pine Bluff 5 of 16 on third down, 2 or 3 on fourth down. They had 3 or 4 in the red zone, no sacks. 8 of 14 for Tennessee State on third down, didn't attempt a fourth down. They were 4 or 5 in the red zone. They had 7 sacks as Pine Bluff offensive line could not protect the quarterback in this game. Mekhi Higgins had a solid game, though. He was 15 of 31 for 237 yards with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like I said, he was sacked 7 times. Jalen Ellis, 20 of 33, 228 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. Ross led Pine Bluff with 16 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown. McGill led Tennessee State with 8 carries for 63 yards. C.J. Evans, 9 for 63 and a touchdown. Giovanni Gibson, 5 for 149 and a touchdown for Pine Bluff. This is second big game for them. Bryant Williams, 5 catches, 88 yards for the Tigers. Kyle Volk led Pine Bluff with 9 tackles. Anais Lukeman had 1.5 tackles for loss. No sacks, no interceptions. Tennessee State was led by Jalen Bell with 6 tackles. He also had 2 tackles for loss. Keandre Booker had 3 tackles for loss and 3 sacks for the Tigers. Sanders Ellis had 2.5 tackles for loss and 1.5 sacks. No interceptions. Like I said, Pine Bluff, they got off to a quick start, but just couldn't maintain. I think this team is still growing and learning, but I think this can be a team that can be a dangerous opponent as we move throughout the season. Like I said, again, I don't know how many games they're going to win this season. Schedule's kind of tough, but I think they're going to be competitive in a lot of games. I think they're going to be more competitive than they were last season. That's already a good sign, at least for the last 2 weeks, that they've been playing pretty. I don't want to say they've been playing well, but they've been, improving game by game. So didn't get the result that they wanted, but still a solid effort for them. They play University of Central Arkansas on Saturday at home, and that will wrap up their non-conference slate, and they will start SWAC play after a bye week on October 5th. They start SWAC play at Alcorn, so they'll wrap up their non-conference slate on Saturday, on this upcoming Saturday, and move into conference play. That takes us to our final game on the day. This was the game that most people thought would be the game of the day, but it did not turn out that way. Jackson State had a great start in this game, scoring 10 points in the first quarter and 13 points in the second quarter to take a 23-3 lead into the half over Southern. Southern would score two second half touchdowns to kind of soften the blow a little bit. Jackson State would get 10 points in the third quarter, and this game would end up 33-15. And Southern missed two 2-point conversions in this matchup. A Beza 25-yard field goal and a J.D. Martin 1-yard run will get the Tigers up 10-0 in the first quarter. Marvin Landy had a 30-yard pass from Jacobian Morgan. Extra point was no good, 16-0. Ahmad Miller would get a 30-yard run for Jackson State to go up 23-0 before Joshua Griffin would kick a 29-yard field goal right before the half to give Southern their first score and send them into the half down 23-20. Beza would kick a 39-yard field goal for Jackson State, and then C.J. Russell would get a 3-yard run for Southern to make the score 26-9. Irv Mulligan will get a 5-yard run for Jackson State to put them up 33-9 after extra point, and then Jermaine Minor will catch a 16-yard pass for Noah Biden to make the score 33-15. Jackson State was able to run the ball, and that was probably the biggest difference in this game. Jackson State was just more physical, honestly, on both both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage, and Southern was unable to get anything going on the ground. Jackson State was really they ran the ball really well in this game, especially in the early portions of this game, and that kind of set the tone for this matchup as Southern really couldn't answer them on defense, and Southern's offense just really struggled to really get anything consistently going. They lost their quarterback Xavier T-Set to an injury, so hopefully he'll be okay. We'll see how that turns out throughout the week. Noah Biden came in, was solid. Was as solid as you could be coming in a game like this. And Jackson State was able to just, kind of make their way through this game and pick up a victory. So they improved to 2-1. Southern drops to 1-2. Jackson State had 19 first down, Southern 18, 29 yards on the ground for Southern, 1.4 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 201 yards on the ground for Jackson State, 42 carries, 4.8 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. Southern was 23 of 39 passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 387 yards passing, 198 yards passing for Jackson State, 14 of 25, 1 touchdown, no interception. Southern 416 yards of offense, 60 plays, 6.9 yards per play, no fumbles. They had 5 penalties for 45 yards. Jackson State 399 yards of offense, 67 plays, 6 yards per play. They had 1 fumble but didn't lose it. They had 2 penalties for 30 yards. Southern averaged 35 yards per punt. Jackson State 40.7. Southern was 5 of 12 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone. They had no sacks. Jackson State 7 of 15 on third down. They didn't attempt a fourth down. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone, and they had 3 sacks. Individually, Noah Biden was 17 of 29, 352 yards, passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 2 sacks. Jacoby Morgan, 12 of 21, 153 yards, passing, 1 touchdown, no interception, no sacks. One interesting caveat, although I hate to see it, both starting quarterbacks would not return in this game. They both got injured. So even though Jacoby Morgan is really a starter, he was the backup in this game. I guess you could say the same thing about Noah Biden. Both guys who started the season at quarterback were the backups in this game, and they both finished this game. That's just an odd thing. I hate to see anybody get hurt. Hopefully McCoy can return next week, and hopefully T-Set is healthy enough to go in a couple of weeks, because both of those guys have some solid ability, and we'll let them see those guys continue to play and not be hurt. Kendrick Grimes led Southern with 8 carries for 18 yards. Herb Mulligan, 13 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown for Jackson State. Ahmad Miller, 3 for 35 and a touchdown. Darren Morris led Southern with 5 catches for 86 yards. Chandler Whitfield, 6 for 85. Jonas Fortillion, 3 catches for 60 yards for Jackson State. Isaiah Spencer, 5 for 41. Horatio Johnson led Southern with 14 tackles. Southern defensively, they had 4 tackles for loss. Derek Williams, Willie Miles, Joshua Tate, and Davin Cotton each had 1 tackle for loss. Jackson State was led by Day Bright with 8 tackles. Joshua Nobles, 2.5 tackles for loss. Also 2.5 sacks and 6 tackles. That's a solid effort. That's another contender for Defensive Player of the Week. Really good game for him. Cameron Smith also had a tackle for loss. True Thompson had a half a sack. Interceptions went to DeMonier Lacey and Kevrick Wiggins. So just, like I said, this was a game where Jackson State jumped out in the first half and were able to basically hold Southern off. Southern's inability to run the ball, or you can say Jackson State's ability on a defense to stop Southern to run the ball, was definitely the key in this game, because you made Southern a team that had to be one-dimensional. They were able to move the ball through the air in the second half, but 2 interceptions in the second half really closed any door that Southern had as opportunity to get in this game. Jackson State were able to do what they needed to do on the offensive side of the ball, ran the ball very well, and picked up a key victory for them. They close out their non-conference slate on Saturday with a trip to Gremlin, and Southern open SWAC play on Saturday with a trip to Prairie View. So two big games, one in conference, one out of conference for both teams. And that's week 3. Taking a look at week 4, Clark Atlanta is at Bethune-Cookman. That's a 2 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. Valley is at Nicholls State. That's a 3 p.m. Central time kickoff. Southern is at Prairie View. That's a 6 p.m. Central time kickoff. Austin P is at Alabama A&M is at Austin P. That's a 6 p.m. kickoff. Central Arkansas at Pine Bluff, 6 p.m. Jackson State at Gremlin, 6 p.m. FAMU at Troy. That's a 6 p.m. Texas Southern at Lamar. That's a 6 p.m. kickoff. And Alcorn is at McNeese. That's a 7 p.m. kickoff. Bama State and Pine Bluff are off this week. I think that's everybody. No, excuse me. Alabama State is the only team that's off. So pretty much a full slate. Bama State the only team with a bye week this week, and that would be week 4. Other than that, man, y'all make sure y'all keep it locked in here. Week 4 preview coming at you on Wednesday, and SWAC Smoke coming at you live on Thursday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, and then our week 4 recap will be Sunday. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.